Hey, what's up, family? Welcome to Ask My Eyes.
where we challenge you to stop playing and start pushing.
This right here is my queen, Deanna.
And this right here, this is my prince, my king, my everything, Ayize. All right, y'all, we're coming to you really quickly here because we got a message actually some time ago, and to the sister who sent this in, just want to thank you for your patience. As you shared a lot, and we took a minute to get back to you. We've been moving and rolling and shaking, but we are back up in here. So essentially, you wrote a really, really long message, and so I'm going to summarize it. And this question comes in two parts. The first is this. It's around having conflict in your marriage and how to deal with hurtful words and painful things that are said and things that stick with you and stay with you long beyond the moment that they were said. And you expressed, she says she's expressed to her husband kind of, I don't even know what was said, but whatever was said, she couldn't get over it, and it's just difficult, and he kind of minimizes it and says she needs to get over it. I think he eventually apologized, but she just doesn't know what to do because she doesn't feel like she can be herself and drop her guard and so forth because that was so hurtful to her. That's number one. And so I want to say this around this area. It is definitely our responsibility as partners to let our significant other, our spouse, our boo know when they've hurt us. No one can change their behavior. No one can do anything differently if we're not honest about, what they've done. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important. And so I'm glad to know that you shared it. And so it sounds to me like he was not being the most sensitive, and you ain't the first, nor will you be the last person to experience a partner who's like, it ain't that serious, get over it. Mm-hmm. Right? I've heard that a time or two.
You have?
From over here.
Really?
But I have. Yes. He'd be real chill with it, but he'd just be kind of like, I don't really see it like that.
I don't agree.
I don't agree. And I'm not looking for his agreement. I'm looking for his sensitivity. I'm mm-hmm. looking for validation and for him to kind of kiss my heart a bit. And he ain't trying to give me that. Mm. So you will not be the first or the last person to deal with that. But here's the thing. You have to continue to lift it up so that your partner understands how much it hurts you. And it sounds like you did that. And then you said that he eventually apologized, right? But you still stuck. So mm-hmm. he's done his part in terms of moving forward and realizing like, okay, she ain't letting this thing go. You have to also take responsibility for letting it go. It's very hard. I just referenced in a counseling session last week, using myself appropriately within counseling. I said to the person, as they were talking about struggling with emotions that they just get stuck all up in them, I said, I was, can you stop moving? You're shaking my head. I was dealing with an emotion. And I literally had to say to myself over and over again, let it go, 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 let it go. I literally repeated it out of my mouth several times, those three words. Because sometimes, and oftentimes, especially for those of us who are very sensitive and very much in our feelings, right? And perhaps we have some baggage, around that area, we get stuck. And you've got to get yourself unstuck. And it's not through waiting to feel better that happens. It's through doing the opposite of what you're feeling. So, reaching out to him and pulling closer to him when you don't feel like you can do it, right? When you feel still like you're, upset or whatever the case may be. That's what you have to do. So I would just encourage you to maintain and keep perspective and understand that, yeah, sometimes our spouses disappoint us. Yeah. And it is important for them to understand it, but it's also important for us to take responsibility for moving forward. Mm-hmm. and moving on, at the same time. The second part of your letter talked about intimacy, and you talked about physical intimacy, sexual intimacy to be specific, and you talked about the fact that your husband has had a really difficult time in the bedroom, that sex has become painful for him, that he has some kind of skin condition in his private area, and that, whatever it is in terms of, impacting him in terms of his being able to, I don't know if it's erectile dysfunction or what have you, but being able to really kind of satisfy you, right? And do what he needs to do in the bedroom. That he's been to the doctor. The doctors have done tests and they found nothing physically, and that the doctor actually used the words, you need to relax, right? So that leads me to believe that perhaps this is a mental or emotional thing, and I don't know if it's connected to the fact that his private area has some type of condition or rash or whatever kind of stuff going on. And then that has, somehow impacted how he sees himself, which has then impacted his mental well-being, so that he now feels a lot of pressure in the bedroom and can't get it up, or, insecurity in the bedroom. I don't know. But what I do know is that this is common where a partner, and I'm talking about men here, they're having difficulty getting it up, holding it up, maintaining, right? If we just keep it real. And it don't have nothing to do with anything physical. It's a mental thing. It's an emotional thing, and it can come from all kinds of things. But that is something that we have dealt with, and we've helped people around. So now that I have opened that up, I will let my husband, the one who has the same private part as the person we're talking about, right? I will let him weigh in terms of how you can deal with that as a wife, because you said, I don't really know what to do with that, and I got some needs and they're not getting met. That's what you said.
So, my wife is absolutely correct in terms of a lot of the limitations. I'm sorry, a lot of the limitations when it comes to sexual performance being mental and emotional. What I would say is that one of the ways in which I suggest that you support him is number one, being encouraging. Be encouraging when it comes to what it is that he can do that would actually satisfy you outside of using his genitalia. Again, as I mentioned on a number of occasions, men aim to please. Every man wants to satisfy his woman sexually. And so if he can't do it with his genitalia, with his penis, then, what are some other ways in which he can be creative and satisfy you sexually? When it comes to his comfort level around, using his penis and all of that and the skin situation that he has, he needs to feel comfortable enough to be able to come to you to express whatever his concerns are. And even in the midst of him expressing his concerns, again, you want to make sure that you're receiving, you're listening, you're validating, you're understanding that this thing is a big thing for a guy. It's an extremely huge thing because, again, men are oftentimes judged. Men are oftentimes elevated in terms of their esteem based off of their own sexual prowess. So if he's feeling hindered in that particular area, then it's imperative that you have to help him establish and build up that esteem by lifting up the fact that if he's able to satisfy you in other ways, not just sexually, but mentally and emotionally, then show him how. Help him to understand how he can do that because, again, he wants to please you. He wants to satisfy you. And so, you got to assist him in that process. But don't miss the fact that this is a serious thing. It's not something that you want to tread lightly around. You want to be supportive of him as it pertains to him dealing with this issue. And one way to do that as well is to ask him, what is it that he needs from you? What does he need? How can he actually be satisfied himself sexually, even if he's having some concerns around his genitalia? So it's not just about him satisfying you, but how can he get his needs met too? So again, approach it sensitively and, make sure you're extremely clear about what he can do outside of using his penis. And then see what ways in which you can satisfy him outside of actually tending to his penis that might bring a smile to his face. So, those are some of the things that I wanted to say.
Well, as we always say this, whoever has the most insight is obligated to use it. And so you may have the most insight either from watching this video, maybe you already did and you know that there's a block here and it needs to get unblocked. And so you can choose to stay in your feelings and not come out of your corner because you've been hurt and he said some things that upset you and it stuck with you. You can choose to stay dissatisfied and unsatisfied and feel like, hey, I've tried to be supportive and I've tried to be, gentle with him in the area of sex and that kind of thing. I've tried to do all of that. Really, Boo? I tried to do all of that, right? And he still isn't responding. Why I got to do all the work? Why I got to do everything? You don't even understand how many times we hear that. Let me tell you something. It does not necessarily matter because this is not a competition. How many times you have to initiate a conversation? How many times you have to reach out versus your partner reaching out? How many times you have to show that, it's okay for you to fully be all of who you need to be with me. You can let your guard down. It's not a competition. This is a partnership. And so there are places and spaces and relationships where one person is weaker. They are much more hemmed up in that area. They are scared. They are in denial. They are just struggling to maintain. And the other person has to fill in the gap and stand in the gap for that person. And if it's about a score, if it's about just, I'm not getting what I need though, and you can only be on that and not just figure out how do I speak life into my husband? How do I give him what he needs? How do I help him see that he already has everything that he needs? If you cannot go there, not to say that you're going to, do that that easily and perfectly. But if you cannot go there and challenge yourself to stay in that space for him and stand in the gap for that man, then you really don't understand what marriage is all about. You mentioned in your letter that you all have been together for maybe about a year or two. So, honey, this is a part of the process. It's a part of the process. Know that you will move through it only if you intentionally go towards it. Because whatever you resist, it will persist. But whatever you look at, it will eventually disappear. We hope that this has been of help to you. And until next time, you know what y'all got to do. Stop playing.
And start pushing.